When I started breaking down Fourth Wing, I was trying to find examples of traditional plot beats from stories I know and love. But the more I looked at Fourth Wing from an analytical perspective, I realized that most of the beats that were keeping me turning the page weren't where story structure says they should go. While Yarros does hit these percentages, the plot points she puts there wouldn't have been where I thought they would go as a writer. Violet leaves her normal world at like 5%. 5. The book creates tension early and then never really lets it go. Here's what surprised me. A lot of writing advice makes story structure sound like baking. Inciting Incident at 12%, first plot point at 25%, midpoint at 50%, add dragons, bake for 400 pages. But the first thing I learned was, it wasn't filling in plot points and pinch points exactly where the 3-act structure says they should be that made the story work. It seemed more important to make sure something interesting and meaningful happened often enough so the reader never gets bored. There are going to be spoilers in this video. Before we get into the plot beats, here's a quick recap of Fourth Wing. The setting is Basgath War College. I hope I'm saying that right. Where the protagonist, Violet, who has been training to be a scribe her whole life, is forced into the writer's quadrant by her mother. The city, I think, she lives in is called Navarre, and it's one of the only places protected by wards, which are powered by dragons. The main story is basically about discovering the government organization of Navarre is covering something up. It has enemies to lovers, forced proximity, a sort of love triangle, and, amongst other things, a twist ending. Okay, so let's start with the negative since it's short and sweet. The only thing I didn't really like was that it felt really young adult at times. I'm not opposed to swearing, but that took me out of it quite a bit. Oh, yes, I didn't like how Xaden is described. He had to be an extremely tall, muscular guy with broad shoulders. I just feel like that's really overdone. And now onto the good stuff. I really like that it was a quick read because of the pacing and the way the information was delivered. We'll dive deeper into that later, but it's definitely something I'm going to keep in mind and take with me into my own writing. I also think it was freaking genius for the author to bring Violet and Xaden together and then shatter them at the end. This is every significant plot point. We have the main story in blue, obstacles in orange, and the romance plot in pink. So, let's break down these elements and figure out not just what worked, but why. According to Story Structure Bible, the first major beat should happen around the 12% mark with the Inciting Incident, also called the Call to Adventure. K.M. Weiland describes this beat as the moment the normal world is first significantly rocked by the conflict. So in this case, Violet's normal world is the scribe quadrant, and the point where her normal world is rocked by the conflict is when her mother forces her into the writer's quadrant. But this beat isn't at the 12% mark. It's all the way up at 1%. Actually, by the time we get to 12%, there's been a whole bunch of world building, character development, we've met allies, antagonists, and the love interest. She's left her normal world and crossed the parapet, and there's even been some foreshadowing. Actually, most of the points of the story, like the pinch point and midpoint, weren't actually where I thought they would be. This made me realize that sometimes what we think are the most surprising, most terrifying, or the most powerful parts of our story don't have to line up with the parts outlined by story structure. Now, you know that story structure? Yeah, the one you've been studying your whole writing life. Throw it out. Just kidding. But what I did seriously learn from this breakdown is that I've been way too hung up on plugging beats into where the 3-act structure says they should go. Now, hold on to your notebooks because we're doing a deep dive into the first act of the book. Remember how the author dumped a whole lot of world building and character development into the first chapter alone? You'd think this could get really boring and overwhelming really quickly. So when I was reading it, I paid attention to where I was skimming over the information and where I was really enjoying and digesting it. Which brings me to the next thing writers can learn from Fourth Wing. We should deliver as much world building and character development through dialogue as we can. I really found myself skimming over anything that was being told by Violet's narration, but anything that was being said in conversation was way more interesting. In Chapter 1, we meet Violet's sister, Mira, and their mother, a character who sees the weakness in the protagonist and tries to protect her, and one who sees the strength. Mira begs their mother to change her mind and let Violet stay in the writer's quadrant because she's physically weak and won't survive. Their mother finally says, hold on, let me find it. Mira, Violet deals with more pain before lunch than you do in an entire week. If any of my children is capable of surviving the writer's quadrant, it's her. By the 3% mark, we know Violet being physically weak very much hinders her chances of surviving the first challenge. But she's also the protagonist, and there's also 95% left of the story, so she can't die now, or there wouldn't be any story. So what pushes us through? Why do we care? The author gives Violet friends, makes us care about them, then proves the stakes are real, and she does such a good job of this in such a short amount of time that I audibly gasped when, spoiler alert, one of them died at the 4% mark, after I'd only met them a few pages ago. This is such a great lesson, and something I'll definitely try to apply in my own writing. So what's actually at the 12% mark? It's at this point where Violet learns about the Gryphon attack. This information is censored by Navarre to make it seem like the Gryphons are the enemies. This beat also serves as information about the bigger story. The Gryphons need weapons to fight against the real enemy, which are the Venin, but at this point, as readers, we believe the Gryphons are an antagonist. There is also actually an argument for both of these beats being the inciting incident, but I think what's more important to take away is that even if the Gryphon attack is the inciting incident, the author doesn't wait for that point to make things interesting. Now here's what surprised me. What do you think belonged to the midpoint? If, like me, you think it was where Violet bonds not one, but two dragons, you would also be wrong. This is actually right smack on the 37% mark. Hello? This does not seem like a reminder of the antagonistic force to me. I honestly think this was what shocked me the most. After all, in Laurie Brooks' story engineering, it says that the midpoint is the big fat unexpected twist. Well, bonding two dragons seemed like a twist to me. But again, this just reinforces the lesson of treating structure as less of a Bible and more of a framework. An important thing to note is what leads up to this beat. Threshing begins and Violet chooses to defend Andarna, the tiny gold dragon, against Jack, who believes in strengthening the whole by eliminating the weak. In this scene, Xaden is there, but he's forbidden to help her. So she has to face Jack and his friends, who are trying to kill the dragon alone. This I definitely would have defined as a pinch point, but Yarros puts it a bit earlier than where the pinch point should be. So what's actually at the midpoint? Exactly at the 50% mark is when Taryn connects to Violet. This really surprised me, because of all the twists we learn along the way, this was probably the least effective. Not because it's a poor beat, but because we know it's coming and we're expecting it, which breaks at least one of the story structure templates. And may I remind you, we're only halfway through. So what fills up the other 50%? Well, if you think the beats were close together before, they're about to get a lot closer. Which brings us to the first thing I noticed when I made this breakdown. Look how close the beats are to each other. There's never more than 10% and usually never more than 5 that passes before we get to the next interesting moment. To put that into perspective, that's 37 beats for 39 chapters. And the only reason those numbers don't match is because the majorly tense chapters are much shorter with the same beats spread across them. I think this is probably my biggest takeaway from the breakdown. And not only this, but the beats are also mixed together. I've heard writers talk about how each sentence should serve multiple elements of plot structure, and Fourth Wing ended up being a great example of that. We have main story beats with the romance plot, and we even have multiple beats serving all of the subplots. The second thing I noticed was that most of these beats are pretty evenly scattered. We have love story beats followed by a couple antagonistic beats where Violet faces different obstacles, with some main story beats sprinkled in between. To give an example of what that looks like from a story perspective, Violet and Xaden finally decide to give the relationship a chance. Then they're interrupted by war games, and just when we think all is well as they go off into the shadows together, they are interrupted by the Gryphon Riders, where Violet's trust for Xaden is shattered. Actually, once we pass the midpoint, the beats start happening a lot closer together, right up until Violet defeats the Venin. Now let's jump back into story structure. After the midpoint, we have the second pinch point, which is another reminder of the antagonistic force. Rather than making this one moment, Yarros spreads this tension across the 59 and 73% marks, at least those involving Jack, which brings up another lesson. Make use of multiple antagonists. And not just multiple antagonists, but also multiple types of antagonists. We have Jack, Xaden, at least at first. The government organization of Navarre is giving some bad vibes. We're led to believe Gryphons are antagonists when it's actually Wyvern and Venin, and not to mention all the obstacles in between. Every time Violet spars with a cadet, it raises tension. All the Riders Quadrant challenges are antagonists. The parapet, the gauntlet, presentation, threshing, and even dragon riding. They all increase stakes, which increases the tension. The antagonistic force keeps changing shape. So even when one source of tension disappears, another takes its place. As a writer, that's incredibly useful, because it means your story doesn't collapse the moment your protagonist beats one enemy. And then we come to the biggest moment of tension so far. At 73%, Violet kills Jack with her newly manifested lightning signet. If I can take a break from plot points for a minute and talk about character development here. I absolutely love how Violet could only be driven to actually kill Jack when it came to the life and death of Liam. There were many times when she had the opportunity to kill Jack, and never did until she was given no choice. Okay, back to what we were talking about. What I did to kind of organize this in my messy mind was to define them. I called Jack the book antagonist because he's killed by the end, and Navarre and the Venom are the series antagonists because their subplots are set up to continue further in the books to come. If you know anything different, shh, keep it to yourself. Please don't put it in the comments and spoil it for everyone else. There is, however, one last thing I'd like to talk about in case I don't do an Iron Flame breakdown. Let me know in the comments if you want that. But this is spoiler free, I promise. Reason being, I know how upsetting it is to invest yourself into a book only to have the sequel spoiled. Once I finished Fourth Wing, I watched a few videos online just for book 1, and one of them completely spoiled the ending of Iron Flame. But even though I knew the ending, I still wanted to read, which made me think, why am I still interested when I know how it ends? And what I realized was I didn't so much care what happened as much as how and why. Okay, we're almost finished, I promise. I know this is getting long. There are 2 more points I want to cover, and those are the denouement and foreshadowing. Look at how far the action continues, all the way up until the 98% mark, which is where Liam dies. Story structures say the denouement should be after the climax and take up 5 to 10%. Well, the climax was when Violet almost died, and that's at 99%. The denouement happens in 1 chapter from Xaden's perspective, and even then, we get a whole lot of information for how many pages? 10 pages. We learn Brennan's alive, their relationship needs to be rebuilt, Arisha exists when Navarre reported it destroyed, and they're now part of the rebellion. And I'm probably missing stuff. And there is actually one thing I would change about the ending. Through the story, Violet recites facts she knows from being a scribe to get through the obstacles. They help her focus. So, at the end, I was really surprised that she didn't recite any facts while defeating the Venom. While this could have been a conscious choice to show she didn't need them anymore, I really think it was a missed opportunity. She could have recited facts and then realized that one of the facts told her how to defeat the Venom. Killing the Venom kills the Wyvern. Instead, this knowledge is delivered through another character. It's not a bad choice, but I think mine's still better. I also think it was frickin' genius for the author to bring Violet and Xaden together and then shatter them at the end. Most romance stories end when the couple gets together. Fourth Wing does that, and then immediately blows it up. Violet gets the relationship, readers get the payoff, everyone is happy for about 10 minutes. Then the trust between them shatters. We wait an entire half of the book for them to even succumb to the tension that's been building between them. And then when the truth comes out about the Gryphons, this gives us the rebuilding of their relationship to look forward to in the next book. So good. There's actually so much more to talk about. I'd love to dive more into character development and foreshadowing, but I think this video is long enough, so I'll save that for another video, and let me know in the comments if that's something you would be interested in. Congratulations! You've reached the denouement of this video. I know fantasy romances, I refuse to use the word romantasy. They're not for everyone, but even if it's not your genre, I think there's still something we can learn. This also isn't to say we should throw out story structure altogether, but that maybe there's just a new, more quickly paced story structure for the modern world. As someone who has been very attached to the 3-act structure for most of their writing life, this is a bit scary, but it's also kind of freeing. If there's anything you'll be applying to your own writing, let me know in the comments. I'd love to know what worked for you and what didn't. I think the biggest challenge for me is going to be working and layering my subplots over the same beats. I'm actually really excited to have my characters deliver information through their dialogue versus narration. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope this video is helpful to you. Let me know in the comments which breakdown you'd like to see next.